Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, November 14th. We've somehow managed to get halfway through November very quickly by my perspective. Certainly this feeds into feelings of not getting a lot done in life that I constantly have the trouble. So we have win a game with the Druid and Hunter. We have play Paladin cards. We have play Paladin cards. These two overlap, so let's re-roll this and cast spells. And we have the Tavern Brawl, so we can start with that. A temporary shift, time is an illusion, turns times double, so build a standard deck and each turn you get an extra turn. Okay, so we need a Paladin deck with, let's see, what can we do with a Paladin deck that would give us double the turns? Is Echo something that would be helpful there? Let's see. Let's just not even think about it. Let's just not take it seriously at all. And Kriperian is actually complaining about people doing exactly what I'm gonna do, which is not taking Tavern Brawl seriously and potentially conceding if you think you're gonna lose immediately. So I'm just gonna take a full deck of spells, and I'm not 100% sure how this will play out, because theoretically this is not going to work at all. This will be insane, but we'll give it a try. And we'll get the spells done. And heck, we might get lucky and somebody else might concede throughout the process too. So I guess yesterday, talking about not really getting a lot done, I guess yesterday I got mostly through games that start with the letter W, but then I got to games starting WHI, particularly the game White Day, a Labyrinth Named School, and then I at that point said, yeah, this is not going to be finished in the next 20 minutes or so, let me take a break. And so now I need to get back to that, and honestly it probably would have been finished in an hour, but I had already spent a considerable amount of time, like I believe it was 2 hours and 45 minutes covering games starting with W. Now this is going to be weird because the next letter, X, in the alphabet is not going to really let me play cover but like 3 games, so it's going to be a particularly considerably short experience. And see, this is exactly what Kriperian says he doesn't like, because he wants to play hours and hours of Tavern Brawls, whereas for me, I don't want to spend hours and hours playing Tavern Brawls. Honestly, I think almost all Tavern Brawls suck. This one, maybe it's a slightly interesting idea to do once, but I certainly wouldn't want to do it multiple times, and I'll just take the victory and move. And great for me. That means I can play now a Paladin deck that is built around my decks that are meta decks, like as good of decks as I can figure out how to make through the assistance of websites, and we can play ranked, which I'm much more interested, particularly for how many years I've put into Hearthstone, in going up in rank. Of course, getting a common pack on the main account is just dust at this point. Just dust. Well, actually, I don't think it actually is. Because haven't they added those new cards to Classic? Let's see, let's check this. Oh yeah, they added these new cards. But it doesn't seem like I'm getting these new cards at any real rate. So this is probably the reason they added these new cards, was to stretch it out. See, that would kind of suck if I get 1600 dust and it really tells me that I can buy this last classic card, and then I would have to come back and spend 800 dust on this, or 400 dust on this, and then 40 dust plus another 40 dust plus another 40 dust is 120. So there's on top of 1600 dust to get this last legendary that we've been trying to get for a very long time. There's another 920 dust worth of new cards that they added, and I wouldn't be surprised if every expansion they continuously add new cards to the classic set. Guess we don't have to really deal with that too much right now, though. I'm still seeing a lot of white flashes of white pixels up here. I don't know what that is. We'll just play regular ranked. We've got probably enough time. Like, I haven't even started to think about covering the news, so let's start doing that. A little bit more news has come up between Monday and this Wednesday than seems to happen nowadays between Friday and Monday. So I'm scrolling down my Twitter feed and just looking at the 5 most recent video tweets just to make sure if there's any new news to talk about. That should put us in a good point, and we can just start covering the news. I guess always and forever I will be looking for shorter experiences when covering Hearthstone. In a lot of ways, Hearthstone kind of needs to work its way out of the gameplay, out of my schedule in total. Like, as the years go on, less and less people are interested in watching Hearthstone. And if it weren't for the fact that I was really cheating, I really am cheating when I say that this stream is Hearthstone at this point. It is shifted very much to being more focused. I'd say somewhere around 55% focused on talking about video game news and like new games coming out on Steam. So the next step, I suppose, would be to stop playing Hearthstone altogether, and then that would probably lose me the 10 to 20 people that watch my streams anyways. Honestly, it would probably take more effort to remove Hearthstone than it's worth. Let's see. Just because then I'd have to do a lot of editing and switching between things to make sure I'm not showing the wrong things when I do the web peek. Speaking of news, GameIndustry.biz has an article. The former Gameloft exec joins Rovio leadership team. Alexandre Peltier-Normand, I assume that's how that's pronounced, appointed the executive vice president of the games business unit. So, yeah, that is something. We're looking for things I could do, and I think this is probably the thing to do. Rovio is the company known for Angry Birds. But in all honesty, Rovio kind of has failed to continue creating new tentpole titles after Angry Birds. I guess one could certainly applaud to say that that Angry Birds was a fine attempt at making mobile games good, at least halfway decent. There's certainly several other games in that realm, but in total there's a problem with the mobile video game market, just nothing being really that good. So we're in a weird position, and I don't know how you're gonna fix it at this point. I think it really is gonna have to come from the iOS, Apple and Google, or they're gonna have to come out and say, we've decided to institute some very strict regulations and rules about what is a quality game, and we're going to heavily curate our storefront. I don't see how somebody else could come out unless there is a Steam mobile storefront, and I don't see why Steam would have a curated experience unless Steam started having a curated experience on the desktop front. So I guess the question is, how do you take the Apple Store and the Google Play Store and
your magic shall not save you.
Turn that into something that is closer to what the Steam Store is? And the Steam Store certainly is full of a bunch of garbage, but it has a lot of really good games too. I don't know how you do that. I think what probably happens is Steam streaming probably gets introduced as an idea, and old games on Steam, old PC games, start working on cell phones, and that would be quite a change, I suppose, as if you specifically came out and had all of a sudden cell phones capable of playing and running old Windows PC software at least moderately well. 10-20 years from now, that probably is how it's gonna go, is you'll just start seeing PC emulators or 8086 processors in the build of cell phones, and cell phones become as powerful as a computer from a couple years ago. And that would, I suppose, fix the issue. But I'm kind of just rambling, so let's talk about this game in a second here. Deal 2 damage. Death Rattle. +3. Death Rattle. Discover a secret. I should have done that a lot earlier. Always get the one card that could draw more cards. Just go ahead and end that there. So we have this game on Steam called Armored Fighter, which looks like total garbage. Yep. Very simplistic MS Paint level graphics. They want $2.09 at a discount for it. Of course, that's not making it to the list. Yeah, I should just call it the list. And then I can be ambiguous about whether I'm talking about the wish list or the follow list. And that saves me a little bit of time of having to actually talk.
Reporting for duty.
Gamasutra has an article that looks like it might be slightly interesting if you're into game design. Applying the science of desirability to game design at GDC 2019. Oh man, unfortunately this is literally just an advertisement for their parent company's game developer conference. It's not a real article. Well, that's a disappointment by far. But in all honesty, the presentation itself was probably going to be a disappointment. Most of these presentations are done by people who shouldn't be doing the presentations, don't know anything, have not really succeeded. And this is true not just for the video game industry, but for just in life in general. Is if somebody is making money public speaking, they probably don't have time to really be successful in what they're talking about. You've got like a lot of public speakers out there about house flipping and multi-level marketing pyramid scheme things and timeshares and things like that, and it's like, no, they're not making money by actually doing what they're saying. They're making money by getting speaking fees and convincing suckers to just listen to them. And the same is kind of true for the game developer conference too. Like, particularly when you think about the video game industry, and as much as we've heard about the concept of crunch and people being forced into overtime, nobody really would have time to go speak at a conference at all, because they'd be making video games, because they'd be always forced into overtime. Moving on, we have another game on Steam called Short Life that looks like it is a pretty low effort, like, joke game. I think the idea here is to try to find how quickly to kill yourself as a character, or maybe not. It seems like the player is actually trying to not kill themselves. But yeah, you can see this is not moving smoothly. This is not animated well. It's a free game, so I guess you can't really complain about the price, but it's hardly a free game that I would even want to cover.
I'm almost out of cards.
Yeah, it's basically just a cell phone game.
Your magic shall not save you.
What is my purpose?
Converting stored energy. Job done.
So yeah, Short Life's not making it to the list either. I wouldn't be surprised if almost none of the games that we look at today make it to the wish list. Alright. So there goes our progress on that point. I guess we stay with this and we fall where we fall. Like, I could move the casual and then maybe get some more victories, but I think we just need to stand by ranked. Keep playing ranked games, keep trying to get to those 500 ranked wins. I haven't even thought about trying to get 500 ranked wins in a very long time. Next we have a game on Steam called Rento Fortune VR, which is a troll game. And it wouldn't immediately look like a troll game until you see this character here, who can be better seen here as the Korean dictator. Like, this is clearly a troll game that somebody put way too much work into to make a VR game, and yeah, I don't know why you'd go this route. frankly, I would have given this one a chance too had I not seen that one bit. I would have said, oh, okay, maybe this is just a collection of random, silly gambling mechanics. But clearly, you don't bring in a controversial political figure into your game because anybody with half a brain would realize that that's going to hurt the chances of your game having any respectability. Let's go and greet this guy.
Met.
Let's see. Giant ad on this. Somebody on Twitter retweeted an article from The Guardian called "The Truth About Time Management: How I Went from Chaos to Punctual Calm in 1 week." I don't think so. I'm not buying a lifetime of bad habits of being late is going to be fixed in a week. There's long paragraphs here. The first paragraph is titled, "The principle of time is like the principle of space. That means nothing to me. 2, decluttering is not the same as organizing." I will agree with that. There are certainly times where I have dealt with people and looked at my own mess in my life and said, you know what, mostly all I do is organize. Like, honestly, almost everything I do is organize. I almost never decluttered. Decluttering, getting rid of things, happens at the point of entry almost. If I buy, say, a new piece of electronics, I throw the box away, I keep the manual, I get rid of all the packaging. That's the only point I declutter. I don't come back at any point and actually declutter the actual piece of electronics, even if it is far too old several years later and not of any real use. The third paragraph is break your day into buckets of time. I feel, but this is from somebody who probably shouldn't trust for any advice as far as being more efficient with their time. I feel like micromanaging your time, though, is probably the wrong response. Like, let's see. If you learn to say no, you will be able to say yes. That generally isn't an issue for me, but I certainly could see it being an issue for others. There's a paragraph, self-care matters. I still feel like that phrase self-care means something different than it seems to mean for everybody else. It's a new phrase to my ear. Your time management journey is lifelong. I'll agree with that. This is a really long article. It's kind of refreshing to see a Guardian article or any article whatsoever that is actually a decent amount of length compared to so many video game articles that are barely 3 short paragraphs long. Let's see. I think it's also worth pointing out, though, that even though I am just a video game critic, in a lot of ways I'm also a content creator, and that makes me kind of an artist, and so rest when you're creating anything is a part of the artistic process. So you really can't go 18 hours straight or 12 hours straight or even 8 hours straight if you're an artistic creative person. In all honesty, even the even people who are just paper pushers, who are doing nothing creative, they're not really working 8 hours a day in anything, doing anything productive. The studies have shown they're working as low as 4.5 hours a day, and then spending the rest of their time, you know, goofing off on their phones, or browsing the internet, or going into pointless meetings. And it really is a great example of where the 8-hour workday shift should be shifted down much lower. Or perhaps it would be slightly easier just to give 3 days a week off minimum. It also, I think, probably goes to show a element of how going to school probably for 8 hours a day doesn't do a whole lot of good either. At the very least, in school, you could try to make the argument that the different classes play a different role. So you're really only spending an hour in a class, and then you're moving on to another class, or maybe you're spending 2 hours in a class and then you're moving on to something else. The way schools are established also kind of don't make any sense at all. Like, very few jobs have you do one thing for an hour or two and then shift you on to some other thing. This is gonna suck.
I fight.
Next game we have on Steam is not tagged sexual content, but it is tagged nudity. It's called Love Kami Healing Harem. It says it's an adventure game, but it looks like it's a kind of more of a visual novel game. So I can't do the web peek on this. It's $11.69 discounted right now. It's from a Moe novel developer and publisher. So I'll watch the video and see. Like, it's got some lovely, very detailed painted backgrounds, and it's showing off the backgrounds at the start before it was showing off even the characters. The characters seem to be Japanese characters, all kind of with a similar large bust size in traditional Japanese dresses. Still trying to see what kind of game it is, and it's selling itself 100% on lewd pictures. I kind of half wonder if this might be a Chinese game. No, it's Japanese. Still, I assume this is a visual novel, but I haven't seen a single line of dialogue. It'd be kind of crazy to make a visual novel, take all the dialogue out completely.
Converting stored energy.
Well, I don't think I'm gonna win here on this Hearthstone game. My best guess, and this really is just a guess, if it's called the Healing Harem, they're probably running some kind of spa up in the Japanese mountaintops. In the visual novel sense. Oh, they were supposed to be goddesses. Picking between 3 of them is not a huge choice. Yeah, it's a visual novel. So, at this point, I've lost twice. I'm gonna save myself any more losses and play casual. And as for lewd adult games on Steam, I guess they go to the follow list, and then we're gonna have to make a special, I think, every 3-month quarterly look at just lewd games and say, hey, which one of these are actually reviewed good, which one of these are reviewed bad. We probably are going to have to take a much finer tipped scalpel to it also and say, hey, most of these games are going to get reviewed very positively even if they are pretty bad. There's less likelihood of less need and less desire to cover so many of those games.
Versus Anduin.
And it really is just a shame here
fight with honor.
that the one pretty game I had to show so far, the one that was well animated, was also the adult game that I couldn't do the web peek on. So instead I get to show you Cypist Underground, this hideously looking, like, super simplistic, ugly game that looks like it's just it looked like pinball, but it seems like it's more of a just shoot 'em up, or more like a mobile game where you just choose left or right in your path. Let's see, early access, $8.99 undiscounted. Yeah, right. Like, that game deserves even a second look. Let's see. I guess eventually I am gonna just train myself to hate so many of the bad games on Steam. I am gonna certainly have to work to forgive and forget, and just move on with my life, and not have this underlying growing sense that all the games on Steam suck. Doing the end of the year Steam wishlist cleanup really has gone to show that yes, there are still a lot of games that are good that I want to own, that I want to cover, but it does also have some glaring omissions. There definitely are some games, particularly from Nintendo, that just will never be on Steam, and that kind of sucks. And then there's just some other console exclusives on PlayStation and Xbox that haven't come over either. And there's probably a good handful of games that are on PC but they're not on Steam, and it just becomes far too much of a mess to try and play those games and remember that they exist. Let's see.
The battle.
That was probably a poor decision to play that. Pick that one, actually. I regret that decision. I should have gone for get more cards, and because I was just gonna do damage to this character, and then that'll be a mistake. And he got lucky certainly by grabbing this one. See, so this does 2 damage, then you'll just heal and draw more cards. Unless there's something I can do here. Put an end to that.
The battle.
There we go. Next game we have on Steam is called Super Darts VR. The idea of playing darts in VR is interesting. That being said, this does not look like darts to me. Like, It is so blindingly neon and bright. I don't know if I'm just getting old and I can no longer tolerate bright neon colors, or if somehow people have just gone insane when developing games and decided that bright neon is the big rage nowadays. I've played darts in the real life, pretty good at it. So the idea of playing one in VR kind of makes sense, although you'd never really get the feel of it in VR. It really would kind of suck. But the good news is you are probably saving yourself a lot of holes in the wall if you're new to darts, and a lot of broken tips if you're playing with plastic tip dart boards, which you probably should, because if you play with the metal tipped ones, you're increasing the odds of the previously mentioned holes in the wall. So I could certainly see the idea here. I'm not 100% sure that you get a lot of the styles of games you can play on darts here either. So this might be just a simplistic 301, 401, 501 style darts games where all you have to do is reach from a score of like 301 or 401 or 501 down to 0 exactly, which is about the most simplistic way to play darts, but there's certainly a whole plethora of other ways that you can play and other games you can play. So this game is $7.99 undiscounted, and while I like the concept, I hate the visuals. I really hate the visuals. I don't think I could even play a single game through all of this. So yeah, this is not making it to the list either. But I would like to see the concept. I don't know how you make a darts game in 2D though, and that's probably why there really haven't been too many. Because it just stops being the same experience. A lot of in a similar way that playing billiards is not really the same experience as it is in the real life. Let's see.
Converting stored energy.
Attack that.
Job done.
Next we have a game on Steam called Rampage Online. Graphics look a little rough. The idea of it being online is scary, and I guess if it's a online multiplayer game only, it's already not making it to the list. Look at this. This trailer is almost halfway through before they even show any videos. So yeah, it's just running around shooting each other with some pretty rough basic graphics. Yeah, and how much do they want? $1.79 discounted? Yeah, right. Rampage Online not making it to the list. Like, I really wish that there was somebody out there with more authority than just me on Steam, just looking at these games and going, this isn't good enough. Like, we're not gonna improve it. Stop working on your game. Stop trying to sell your game until you go back and put a lot more polish in it. Like, Steam should not be the storefront for half-finished ideas or games that ran out of budget a quarter of the way through. There are other websites for that. It gets back to the idea of, should Steam have a secondary, like, curated storefront? Alright, well, I'll give this one some more. That. Game Sutra has an article, R-Type Dimensions EX for the Switch and PC launches November 28th. You can play R-Type and R-Type 2 in retro 2D or new 3D graphics. I suppose that would be a good point for me to try and play the R-Type series. I'm not really sure I'm ever really would get to that point, because I guess there's a lot of historical relevancy to playing R-Type versus so many other shoot 'em up or side-scrolling shooters. I guess it's not a shoot 'em up game because you're not going upwards.
Reporting for duty.
So do I want to save a character, or do I want to get rid of that character? I think I want to get rid of the character. So here's R-Type Dimensions EX, and just looking at the screenshots, here's like 2D graphics, here's new 3D graphics. Doesn't seem like they've gone too crazy on changing it, and it doesn't feel like the R-Type series is as much of a bullet hell game as more modern shooters are. So maybe I could really play it. Maybe there's some way I could cheese it or cheat it. It's interesting they do call it a shoot 'em up game, and this is coming out November 28th. So yeah, I could put it on the fall list.
Let me think.
Although that is basically me promoting a game that hasn't come out yet and getting slightly on the hype train, although I wouldn't be very much on the hype train for this. If it weren't for the fact that R-Type was a successful, historically important game, I would never want to play it. It's totally not the game for me. So even if it does make it to the wish list, it's not a game likely to be purchased during this Steam sale. And when this Steam sale happens, that's gonna suck. I think it's gonna suck pretty well. I don't know how much money, if any, I'm gonna spend on games. Speaking of things that might end up sucking, we have a Gamatsu article. Like, I'm certainly sucking. Have I played all of them? No. I guess if I get this cast of spells done, then I could leave things for Friday. I don't inherently want to do that, but it may come down to that because I'm not really getting victories. Anyways, I was saying, Gamatsu has an article, THQ Nordic acquires Bugbear Entertainment and Coffee Stain Studios. So THQ Nordic is once again spending a lot of money, buying a lot of companies, trying to be the biggest company they can possibly be. This acquisition includes studios and all intellectual property rights. Now, the question here would be, Bugbear, let's see. Bugbear was a independent studio with 18 members, developing race games, and was currently working on the game Wreckfest. So that's what they are doing. I assume that they will continue to make Wreckfest. Let's see what the other announcement is, because Coffee Stain Studios, that is the game Satisfactory, Goat Simulator, Sanctum, and the publishing rights to Deep Rock Galactic. And let's see. So, like, why does THQ want to turn back into THQ? It seems crazy. It seems like it is from some deep-rooted thought that probably the CEO is somebody that works at THQ Nordic, went on to make Nordic games, and he just wants to rebuild his empire for the most part, while leaving some of the bad debt-ridden problems on the sideline. It really feels like it's coming from the concept that THQ, the original THQ, only made one mistake in running their company. I think they probably have made more than one mistake, and one of their many mistakes, if I was to guess, is the idea that you can just infinitely grow and become this giant video game mega corporation like EA and Ubisoft, and that's not going to affect the quality of the games you make. Let's see. Tragic Master says, I can help after this game, lose a game or two if you want to get them out of the way. Okay, if you want to, Tragic, that's fine. Got plenty of time and plenty of news to talk about still, so
I fight.
So I'm moving kinda slow. Gamma Sutra has an article, post-mortem, greater accessibility through audio in Killer Instinct. So apparently they were very interested in putting audio cues in Killer Instinct when you were giving damage, receiving damage, or blocking damage in particular. Those were the top priorities. This sounds like a really cool idea, but in all honesty, if you are more than ever so slightly visually impaired, you're not going to play a fighting game like Killer Instinct.
To battle!
I fight.
I cannot imagine anybody being able to manage through that. So this is a Gamma Sutra article from a developer basically patting themselves on their back for doing something that they probably shouldn't have even cared about, and probably wasting resources and time on that. Now, little bits of audio clues certainly probably would help a fully vision capable person also, so it's probably not a total loss. But if you were to tell me that Killer Instinct played 10% smoother or 10% faster if they hadn't spent the time putting in audio clues, I would have definitely taken that 10% smoother or 10% faster frame rate. Or 10% less bugs, because almost certainly there are little bugs. Let's see. Tragic Master says Tekken is greater than Killer Instinct. Good to know, because that is certainly one issue that keeps popping up as I'm doing the 2018 Steam wishlist end of the year cleanup. Is I've got tons and tons of fighting games, and I don't have a clue if I want to play any of them, and I do not have a freaking clue which ones to play. Like, so I kind of think I would want to start off simple and stupid and something for noobs. So I'm thinking something like Dragon Ball Fighter Z might be the best one to start off with, and then I don't know where you really go from that, because I would think I would need to go up in technicality with every game that I tried to cover, and I probably would want to try and cover a lot of different ones. So I would think it probably would be something like Dragon Ball Fighter Z. Maybe even I'd play one of the Naruto fighting games before that, if Naruto is really relevant. And then I'd work my way up to Killer Instinct, and then probably Mortal Kombat. And then we'd start getting into like the hardcore games, and I like have no idea as far as Soul Calibur, Tekken, Street Fighter. I have no idea which ones are the good ones, which ones are the bad ones. or which ones, what the order should be there. I don't know if I really need to go through every single Street Fighter, every single Tekken, every single Soul Calibur game available on Steam. There is also a considerable amount of like adult fighting games that I don't know how I would cover. There's also a considerable amount of like SNK, Fatal Fury, Marvel vs. Capcom, some of the more 2D games. There's Wave Blue as a series, there's Skullgirls, there's just like a list of at least 50 fighting games. And I don't want to turn into that Giant Bomb show where they're playing every single fighting game for no reason. But there's quite a lot of them, and I think quite a lot of them actually do deserve to be played. But I don't know how many in even a year's time I'd really be willing to play, because also I'd be approaching it in a very different direction, because I'd only really be doing these single player games. I wouldn't really be playing the multiplayer experience, and I probably would only play it for like one quick run through, and that would be it. Let's see. So where are we? We need to cast 5 spells and get 2 victories with the Paladin or Warrior. I think I may switch over to the Warrior just for safety's sake. So yeah, the same is also true for like RPGs and JRPGs. There's a ton of those that still are on the wish list, even though I did the wish list cleanup, because I just really don't know how many RPGs that are more Western RPGs, fantasy, Tolkien-esque, Lord of the Rings-esque style fantasy game RPGs. How many of those are really worth playing? How many JRPGs are worth playing? Every single RPG is at least 20 hours of commitment, so I probably could only play one a year. It's probably a system where I would never catch up, and I just have been paralyzed with indecision on them.
Job's done.
So that's one of the things where I'd hope my channel would have gotten more fans, more subscribers and such, that were kind of guiding me and asking me to cover certain games. But then again, I'd also would have hoped that my channel would have made enough money where I would have had some kind of budget where I could say, okay, I'll go buy this game at full price, $60 or more. So right now, if people ask me to play a game, unless I own it right already, the chances are not very high that I'd play it very fast. But I certainly would take those suggestions and those requests and put them on the wish list at least. And that's also where I'm hoping the end of the year wish list videos come in handy, is that people can see all the games I'm interested in covering and get hyped about a bunch of particularly old games. Let's see, if I did this twice, I just want to do this for fun. I guess since I'm playing a tragic, it doesn't really matter. Moving on with the news, Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes Physical Edition is to be released in North America and Europe. It includes a season pass. Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes is coming out worldwide on January 18th, 2019. This is not No More Heroes 2. I always have to remind myself of that. Like, for a second there when I saw the title here, I was thinking, oh, so are they re-releasing No More Heroes 2 and not re-releasing No More Heroes 1? But that is definitely not what's happening.
Out of my jungle.
Let's see. Gamer Sutra has an article, Get a Job. Choices developer Pixelberry Studio is hiring a senior software engineer. That job is Mountain View, California. I suppose it's worth mentioning with all the big fires in California. Like, it could be particularly devastating, and generally speaking, I like to see a lot of the video game companies move out of California in total and sort of out of that region in total. If they were more diversely placed along the massive land mass that the United States is, they would have a more culturally diverse group of people with a more culturally diverse ways of thinking, in my opinion, and I think that would help quite a lot. But I mean, just to get away from that, if it was still just a bunch of California people working at jobs, but their offices caused them to move inland in the middle of the United States somewhere, they would at least not be affected by the fires. Giant Bomb, in part, has been affected by the fires just because there's so much smoke and dust in there. I don't think that their offices are actually anywhere close to the fires. Let's see. I'm probably thinking too hard about this, considering Tragic said he was just gonna let me win anyways. Let's see. Let's play spells, that's what I need to do. Let's try to get as many cards as possible and exhaust it down to 0. That should be my strategy, yes. We have a game on Steam called Super Captain 3D that's another awful shoot 'em up game. This is almost certainly a pre-made asset, and probably this is too. This is just awful. $2.99, not discounted. Alright. Spells.
Job done.
Gamer Sutra has an article. Google Play announces Games for Change Design Challenge finalists. I'm sure this is... Okay, yes. They launched Games for Change Design Contest, which launched back in March to promote gender diversity by inspiring young women as players and game makers. So let's see what the design... let's see. Let's see, there's... Am I gonna have to click somewhere to see the actual finalist because Gamer Sutra doesn't want to even list the finalist? I think that is the case. Alright. So one of them made a game called Mazu, M-A-Z-U. Looks like a side-scrolling platformer. Here, let's play this first. See, why can't I play a card until the animation is done? This seems new in Hearthstone, that they won't let you just play a card automatically.
Job's done.
Yeah. So we'll just spotlight this. Mazu looks like a simplistic cell phone platforming game. We have number 2 is Ecoverse, which looks like a simplistic... I don't know what you'd even call this. This was made by a 14-year-old, which really goes to show that some 14-year-olds can do better than a lot of other developers. Let's see, does it say the age here? 17-year-old? So yeah, these look like kids that made the games. probably with help from other people. We have a game called Symphony from a 17-year-old. Again, looks like a side-scrolling platformer, but frankly, cell phone games, that's pretty much all they're gonna be. And then this one called Palette looks slightly interesting, but I'm not 100% sure what you would do with it. I kind of wish that there was more videos of the gameplay. And then there's a game called The Other Realm. So yeah, that is that. They did a program to encourage women or little girls or young women, I guess would be the right response there, because these were teenagers. So not a terrible thing for Google to do. I would argue Google should potentially should be a trying to focus more on cleaning up their storefront in total. Okay, so if we come over here, we can see a little bit more about Meizu and the art style. It's pretty good drawing, if this really is just that girl being able to draw. It's kind of surprising you'd be able to draw and slightly be able to program. Like, I always wonder about this. Is this really made by one person? Almost certainly not. Like, I don't think a 17-year-old has the time and ability to program and draw. Like, you've got to put time and practice into both of those things. But it does look pretty, and if they did pull that off, then that is shocking. Let's see if we can see more about the other games. Yeah, Ecoverse. The problem, and this is going to be with a game that comes out pretty soon here. I have to play. Is we're gonna, I believe it's Battle Princess Madeline is gonna come out pretty soon, and it too is probably gonna be a mediocre game that sells itself on the fact that it's raw feminism instead of being a good game. This Ecoverse seems pretty simplistic. It seems like you're mostly doing this archery mini game. In all honesty, I would, if I was a game designer and I was of something that was going to be exploited, of some class that was going to try and go like raw feminism, I would try to hide that fact and try to make my game sell it on its own merit. And that's kind of the problem here, is that it inherently is slightly sexist to devalue female developers or young developers by putting that extra pronoun in front of them, that extra descriptor in front of them. These young women should just be called programmers, and that's that. And the fact that a special organization, a special initiative had to be made, then basically puts them kind of in the Special Olympics instead of the regular Olympics, as far as like just programmers. It would have been a lot nicer if I could report this story as Google announced some new and up-and-coming great programming, great programmers of the future competition open to all genders, and and open to all ages under 18, like at that point then you're just in the little league. But if what they did is they've become ultra specific and not allowed these girls to compete against people they will most certainly be competing against in real life, which is all those 17 and 18-year-old boy programmers out there. And I'm sure there's quite a lot of them, but they're not getting any recognition. Moving on, we have Symphony, which again, really nice drawing. Like, it's hard to believe that this is the actual child drawing all of this. Symphony actually looks more interesting than the other games I've seen so far. I don't want to be incredibly cruel to these kids. Their games are probably a lot more finished than anything I tried to do would ever be. But I do want to be as honest and as fairly critical as possible. Just doing everything. Next game is Palette. Now, the Mona Lisa, I believe, is actually copyrighted, so this game very potentially could get copyright stricken. So this looks like it is basically stolen copyrighted images of art. Maybe it's open domain. It kind of depends, and it seems like it's almost like a paint by number game. Yeah, this is actually a very basic idea that any number of people would have done had they been able to. But this also, I believe, is from the youngest participant of the competition, so that would certainly be specifically a reason. The cards that have what, 6? Didn't realize I was going to end up going through all these games, so this is taking a little extra time. And then they have this game called The Other Realm, which, let's see what this is. This is more in line as far as my guess of what a child's art style would look like. Like, not particularly great, not terrible either. Like, certainly it could be a lot worse, but some of those sketches looked really too good. And this game actually looks like it's more of an adventure game than just a simplistic puzzle platformer game, and actually intrigues me more than the other games that were available for show. Okay, so if we do this, then do that, and then do that. We'll just keep on summoning his characters. Next we have a game on Steam called Ganghood Survival. Unfortunately it's not supported by English. It's a Chinese game. So of course that's not making it to the wish list. Or the follow list. Or the list, as I'm trying to train myself to just call it. Come on, draw some cards.
Nice little raptors.
Now, I hope Tragic remembers that he was gonna concede, but at this point I think I probably win on fatigue anyways. But I mean, he could certainly pump that character out. We have a game on Steam called Pythagoras Perpetual Motion Machine. This looks a little too zoomed out for my taste. Let's see if I can see some gameplay of it, because I'll watch a video as I move over and play, because my thought here is that this might be worth playing, it might not be. It seems like it's a little bit more zoomed in. You're just walking around and you're trying to move marbles. And by moving the marbles, you're spinning this, which is spinning this, which I guess you're making your own elevators to go up and up. Okay, this doesn't look so bad that it doesn't deserve a chance. It's $9.99 by default, so I'll put this on the follow list. We'll see if people review it.
Time passes.
Everyone, get in here!
Hearts.
Let's see.
You're good.
Tragic Master says, "Get in here, everyone, get in here." That's right. That's what I figured. And yeah, we could. I think at this point I need to break up a recording, and I think I can leave a Paladin and Warrior victory for next time. Tragic Master goes, "Lol, patrons so funny." So yeah, Tragic, unless Tragic wants to just challenge me again and play one more game, I think I'll just switch over in the break to the European account. Tragic Master says, "Good game, thanks for the fun." Yep. I think this is as good of a... Oh, he does want to play. Alright, we'll play one more game. Thank you. Let's go back to Paladin, though. I think Paladin is something I'd actually like to win with once in a while. Gamma Sutra has an article. The audio design behind the original Xbox startup sound, quote, literally from the day that Bill and Steve gave us the green light to do the Xbox to hitting the stores was only 18 months, so everything had to be done just lightning fast and really, really quickly. Decisions were very fast. Or fast. I don't want to misquote a quote if I can avoid it. So, I don't even remember what the Xbox startup sound is. So, like, I don't know what that really means. Because it's been so long, and I didn't have an original Xbox. I know what the Xbox 360 startup sounded like, and so I bet the original Xbox was a slight variant on that idea.
The light dims, but we fight.
I don't know if that really has any relevancy at this point, though. So it's probably not an article worth reading. And I have a lot of news these days, so it's kind of silly to try and read extra articles. Do this. Attack here. I don't know what I want to do. See, if I play that, that's a mistake. If I play that, that's a mistake. If I play this might be a mistake. I guess not. We play that here and try to play this later. GameIndustry.biz has an article. The Toronto esports have departed the Overwatch Toronto Esports departs Overwatch contenders over naming dispute. Boston the uprising to retain players and staff following the partners' exodus. So Toronto's Esports has announced the departure from participation in Overwatch contenders following a dispute surrounding around naming rights. Boston Uprising, the organization it was affiliated with, will remain in the league. So that sounds pretty ridiculous to fight over naming rights and get out of a growing potential esports league, but it might have just been a good excuse for them to get out once they realized it. Let's see. Here's a quote down. We've been informed by Blizzard that we will be forced to remove Toronto from our brand in only 6 weeks. Mid-Contenders Season 3. The reason cited at Toronto Defiant have purchased exclusive naming rights. We will be leaving the Overwatch effective immediately. Good riddance. So yeah, it seems like a pretty nasty fight was happening in the background from the looks of it. That it would come out in public that this is the reason. But I guess there's big money and big egos certainly going on.
The light dims, but we fight.
Let's see. Although Toronto Esports has thus far been involved only in competitive Overwatch, a statement from the team's Twitter has said that it will explore other avenues such as Fortnite and Counter-Strike Global Offensive. So yeah, like, interesting article. It certainly shows that esports people at least think it's gonna be a big deal. And they may be wrong, but they think it's going to be a big deal. So I'd hit that. Gamasutra has an article, Nintendo wins out in legal battle against ROM sites. Now, I think what happened here, this is against Love ROMs and Love Retro, that we've already talked about this story. They threatened to basically sue them into oblivion, if I was to guess. And then they had them sign an agreement saying they would admit guilt and agree to pay back $12.23 million and they would agree to do that in exchange for not really having to pay back $12.23 million. This is because it's agreeing to a judgment. Let's see, so that's how Gamasutra explains it too, is that they agreed to a $12.23 million judgment in the favor of Nintendo, though both parties could still agree upon smaller amounts in private. And one of the things this does is this allows precedent to slightly be set, where Nintendo can use this case to show as an example to threaten other companies that may be hosting ROM sites or emulators. And sometimes this is done directly in bad faith. Like, this is tinfoil conspiracy theory, but it wouldn't be unheard of, and it wouldn't be surprising if it turns out that Love ROMs and Love Retro was running, established, and always done by a Nintendo affiliate. That Nintendo had Love ROMs and Love Retro created just so they could come back and sue them later on. I would not be surprised for 1 second if it turns out that Nintendo themselves have gotten ROMs from Love ROMs, and perhaps this is a attacking before that information comes out also. because we know that they're running basically ROMs on their online service in their own emulator, so maybe they got them from Love ROMs. Maybe some low-level employee at Nintendo downloaded them from Love ROMs and they said, uh-oh, if anybody ever finds out about this, we'll be in trouble. So let's just go after this company first so that they can't come back and look at their logs and realize that some of those downloads have been coming from Nintendo. But my other thought there is it's not unheard of in court cases to have somebody act like they're a defendant and then admit that they're guilty when really they aren't a defendant at all. They're a, I hate to use the phrase crisis actor, but a fake defendant, a person or entity designed to specifically accept guilt to establish precedent. Let's see. The lawsuit says LoveROM and Love Retro websites were among the most open and notorious online hubs for pirated video games, explains Nintendo in the lawsuit. I've never heard of LoveROMs or Love Retro before the lawsuit happened.
What is my purpose?
And that, in all honesty, I wouldn't be going to a specific website looking for ROMs. If I were looking for ROMs, I would be going to something like the Pirate Bay. Like, I would be looking for peer-to-peer, hard-to-trace style torrenting things. I wouldn't be going to a website. Inherently, though, this also still doesn't solve the problem. The reason why Love ROMs and Love Retros and other sites like that exist is the fact that there's not a realistic, legitimate way for people to play these games. Nintendo could have easily saved themselves money because they probably wasted money here. They're not going to get that 12.23 million from them. Probably not going to get a penny from them because I bet they don't have any money at all. So yeah, they might get a couple $1,000, force the people who run Love ROMs and Love Retro to sell their house or something, but they're not going to get back what they spent in legal fees. Meanwhile, it would have been really easy for Nintendo just to come on this Steam and say, here's all the first-party Nintendo games available, like Sega does with the Sega Genesis Master Drive collection. We haven't done a lot to them. We've just run them through an emulator, and we're selling them for cheap at, well, actually Sega sells them pretty expensively for about $2.99 a game, when really they should be about 50 cents a game, just because they're that old. Or if Nintendo had their own separate website, they didn't want to deal with Steam, and there was a Nintendo website where you could, through a browser, play old ROMs, that would be fine too. They could have certainly set something up like that. There's way better ways that they could have made it easier for people to play the games, short of buying a Switch, streaming that game, downloading that game through the online service on Switch, and waiting every month to see if the one game you actually want to play is coming out for the Switch. Even the NES Classic, they really haven't made a Classic 2. They should have announced a Classic 2 like this year. That way they could have had a whole second collection of games. But they didn't do that. Tragic Master says, good game, have fun on the other servers. Okay, So yeah, let's go ahead and close that article, and this is where we'll be wrapping up this recording. Stay tuned if you're watching live. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And I guess that's about it. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.